So here we are in our Wednesday evening. In our next session here, we are looking at some events from the 1990s, 98 into 99 specifically, courtesy of Messianic Jewish Rabbi Jonathan Cahn, his new book, The Avatar, which came out just in September. So getting our screen share going back up here. So coming off of President Clinton's confession on 9/11 of 98, 3 years before 9/11 of 2001, going forward from here. At Jonathan Cahn's place in New Jersey, he had a gentleman come to him, and this gentleman's name, in December of 1998, Dr. P. Job, I believe it's pronounced Job. He spoke at a rally. He first spoke at a rally in front of the Indian Parliament to protest the recent deaths of several Christians there in India. Militant Hindus then sent him threatening calls and letters, telling him to stop preaching against the persecution or his family would be wiped out. So here's a Christian guy in India where it's Hindu dominant, and it's not the hippie peace-loving Hinduism that we think of. They are persecuting and killing Christians in India. And so he's speaking out against this to the government. Hey, this is happening, and he's getting threats on him and his family. So he comes and visits Jonathan Cahn at his place in New Jersey, Beth Israel. And so what happens there with this visit? He remembers that the Apostle Thomas was a Jewish believer who came to India. We talked about that in an earlier class out of the Avatar. Well, Dr. Job has this idea, what if, since the gospel first came through a Jewish believer coming and walking across our land here, where Thomas was eventually martyred, he said, what if we get another Jewish believer today to come on over and retrace the steps of the Apostle Thomas, and maybe we can get a revival going. So he asked Jonathan Cahn to be that Jewish believer. And so Jonathan Cahn prays about it and considers it. And here's where we'll pick up with his story. This is now January of 1999. He says, I was to give him an answer before he left. Complicating the decision was the fact that not long before he came to Beth Israel, a new party and government had come into power in India. A radical agent of Hindu nationalism. This government, it was known for championing the worship of Hindu gods and the persecution of non-Hindu religious minorities, prominent among whom were Christians. It was an example of the convergence of the spiritual and physical realms. In this case, the gods and the government of India. Under the new government, churches were burned down. Christian schools and cemeteries were destroyed. And Christians were assaulted, raped, and murdered. So he says, I was now being asked to walk through the land of India, proclaiming the gospel in the footsteps of Thomas, the man who the people of India believed had brought the gospel to their land. Under such circumstances, promised to be a dramatic and potentially dangerous journey. I prayed and was led to say yes. So we're going to look at Jonathan Cahn's experience in India. And that's where this is here. Oops. This area in the southern part of India known as Tamil Nadu is where we're going to pick up. So as I continue to share this story, feel free to interrupt me anytime if it gets a little too much or you need to take a breath, or if you have any questions or anything's not clear that we're looking at with his experiences here. So, picking up again, we're in January of 1999. So he's at this place, Tamil Nadu, which is where he comes. So I'll give you a taste of the place here that he is at in India, where he's coming to retrace the footsteps of the Apostle Thomas and proclaim the gospel, where all this is going on. So this is that place. Yes, as you can see, very, very devoted to their Hinduism and all of their architecture and monuments and buildings. Let's see here. Oh, there was a question or a thought?
Well, there's that one picture where the waves are very big. That one.
Yeah,
It's like there's a storm
something going on there.
right there.
Definitely a blustery day.
The statue of the god is very
Pro-
huge.
yeah, I mean, look at that. I'm assuming like a parking garage or something there.
Yeah, it looks like a parking structure.
Yeah, that's something.
It's so weird. The picture doesn't even look real. It looks like
Right.
something just kinda put pieces
Yeah,
together.
and that was uploaded February of 23. Not a guarantee of when it was taken, but when it was uploaded there. So yeah, not stuff we typically see from our perspective. So at night at a hotel in this place, Tamil Nadu, they're getting ready to sit down and have dinner, and he's about to lead them in prayer, but he never got to because the leader of his security team, who was his principal bodyguard, who was a former New York City policeman, was suddenly and violently thrown backward, came crashing down on the dinner table, then on the floor, began convulsing in seizures, out of control, foaming at the mouth, and those who were witnessing it are fearing for his life. The emergency medics are called in. Nothing in his life like that had ever happened before, never happened again. When they got home and he got all medically checked out, no reason for any of that, so that was a bit bizarre. But he does make the observation, we were there on a mission, let's see, we had come to a land of many gods, and thus a land of many shadim, which is the Hebrew word for demon, principalities and spirits. We were there on a mission that would put us in conflict with such things. In the New Testament Greek, it meant we were in a land of many demonia, demonic spirits. And so it was no accident what took place that night manifested the signs of the demonic. So they're saying that as a possibility. So Tamil Nadu, next go up to Chennai, right in here. Oh, traffic, parade, cows, elephants, trains, tall. You'll notice the car for perspective. So here they are in Chennai for this next part of the adventure. Yeah, doesn't it? And that's something doesn't look like things that we're used to seeing here. Yeah. So anyway, so now we get on to Chennai. Still January of 1999. Upon arriving in Chennai, we were visited by one of the city's police chiefs. He informed us because of the increased danger of violence to Christians, he sent commandos to the mountain that they're going to accompany us on our ascent. Turned out he was a Christian. Before leaving our hotel room, he was led to recite the words of Psalm 91. Let's actually go there. Psalm 91. So here's a former police chief in charge of security for this, and he's wanting to lead them in this psalm. Psalm 91, let's look at the first 5 verses. Psalm 91, verse 1. One who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will lodge in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say to the Lord, my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. For it is He who rescues you from the net of the trapper and from the deadly plague. He will cover you with His pinions, and under His wings you may take refuge. His faithfulness is a shield and wall. You will not be afraid of the terror by night or of the arrow that flies by day. So that was the encouraging word that he wanted to read as they were praying about this. So adding to the intrigue here during January of 1999, the day arrived for them to go to the mountain where Thomas was martyred, the kind of epitomizing the war of the gods against the gospel. As they were preparing to do so, the headlines of the next day's paper showed how real this war had gotten. That same day, another martyrdom took place in India. January 23rd of 1999, a gentleman named Graham Staines. Another missionary had been killed in the land. An Australian minister and his 2 sons were brutally murdered by a mob of radical Hindus in the Indian state of Orissa. And now the authorities are worried about Jonathan Cahn, what he's going to be doing up there. So this happened while he was in India. So yeah, stuff was no joke. So we'll actually, let's see. This is actually, so on the mountaintop, there's a centuries-old church bearing the name of Thomas and commemorating his martyrdom. So, as he's on the stage there, all this is coming together, he's there where Thomas had been. 2,000 years earlier, Jewish disciples of Messiah passed the torch of the gospel to the Gentiles, the light of God to the nations. So now, people are actually bringing torches to Jonathan Cahn, and so the mountain represents this passing of that torch. Now, 2,000 years later, a minister from the nations, from India, is returning the torch back to the hands of a Jewish follower of Messiah on that same mountain. So as Thomas brought the torch of the light of the gospel to the people of India, now the people of India here inviting Jonathan Cahn, they're bringing a torch to him to show that they've kept the torch and are bringing it back to him to commemorate what Thomas had done there. So even in the midst of persecution, there is revival. And so I appreciate that note very much. So we'll pause right there with that. Any reactions or thoughts, comments, questions on what we have seen so far with Jonathan Cahn's initial visit here to India and this invitation and desire for revival? You think as many people are leaving the demonic hell state of California, you think that people are saying, we can't be spiritual in California. We need to go where we're free to be more spiritual. Well, does California need spiritual people? Yeah. Does California need churches? Yeah. So ironic. So when Jesus was given a hard time for hanging out with sinners, well, he said, the healthy don't need a doctor. And so he's here with the people who are in need and who are receptive to the help. So sometimes people who are in need aren't receptive. Here there's a call and a cry for help, and that call was answered in this case, and he's far from the only one. So be in prayer for environments that aren't necessarily Judeo-Christian friendly, that there's still need. There are still people who need to be saved, people who need the Lord's church, and the Lord still has a desire to bring his church. Gates of hell won't prevail against it. But we have opportunity to be here for folks. So with that, let's close in Scripture. Let me stop my screen share here. Let's actually close in moving forward from Genesis 3. Let's go to Genesis 12. And let's look at the first 3 verses, the call of Abraham. Just as Thomas took the gospel to India, so back from the start here with Father Abraham, we see a call to go, which means also a call to leave. So in Genesis chapter 12, the first 3 verses. Genesis 12, verse 1. Now the Lord said to Abram, go from your country, and from your relatives, and from your father's house, to the land which I will show you. And I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you, and make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. And I will bless those who bless you, and the one who curses you I will curse. And in you all the families of the earth will be blessed. So, closing thought from the devotional book of Mysteries, Jonathan Cahn shares this thought. The word Hebrews. Do you know the word in Hebrew for Hebrew is not Hebrew? It's actually Ephraim, if I'm pronouncing it right. Usually when we see something ending in IM, that means it's plural. So what does that word actually mean? That is the name for the people there. Ephraim, for Hebrews, it means those who cross over. So keep in mind, the Hebrews crossed the Exodus Sea, what we call the Red Sea, the Boundary Sea, Yam Suf, Gulf of Aqaba, and the next generation would cross the Jordan. So they crossed those two to enter the land of Israel. But think of it this way. They had to first get out of Egypt. The entire book of Exodus is named for the get out, Exodus, exit out. And so they first had to leave before they could enter, is the point. The crossing over, going from one place, leaving one place behind to go into a new place. And so Abraham is called to leave, to go somewhere else. The first command was get out. Everything else came after. Getting out is a holy act. Messiah called his disciples out to come with him. The definition of the church, the Greek word ecclesia, is a called out assembly. Come to where you are being called to be. Jesus isn't required to come running to where we are. No, he calls us to come be where he establishes. And so Messiah called his disciples to come to him. But in order to do that, they had to first leave, drop their nets, get out of their boats, and leave their old way of life. If they didn't leave, they couldn't come. God calls us to come, to move, to follow, to pilgrim, to leave, to enter, and from that leaving to then enter into his blessing. We can't know any of these things without first being willing to leave. There are many who long for change in their lives, for something better, something new, but few are willing to leave. But the law is not only of the physical realm, but also spiritual. If you want to get to the place where you aren't, you must first leave the place where you are. Leave the old, you will enter the new. Cross the Red Sea out of Egypt, then you were able to cross the Jordan into the Promised Land. So, in this season of New Year's resolutions, being resolved to give up some old bad habits and take on some new good habits, good time and season to be thinking about what God is calling us out of and needing to leave that behind so we are free to embrace and take on the new. Whatever that may be for us as a church, whatever that might be for us as households or individuals, the Lord never calls us to leave something behind without replacing it, having even better for us that he's calling us to. So never wonder if, am I better sticking with what I've got? If God's calling you, don't hesitate, leave your stuff behind, and what God's got is always better. And we see that with Abraham, we see that with the Lord's people being called out of Egypt into the Promised Land, and so he is faithful in his character to be doing the same in our lives today. So any reactions or thoughts on Genesis 12, call of Abraham, and going out so we can come in? All good? All right, we'll close up shop for the evening, and let's get ready to stand, meet in the center, close out tonight in our season of prayer together.